Hi, I'm Rachel, and this is an AM reading for the end of August 2020. Can't even pretend it's a Friday Reads really this week. We're way past that. I haven't been here in over a week, and I feel bad about it. I've been in a bit of a funk, really, because of coronavirus and life, personal, and the broader world. And just didn't really feel like sitting down to talk about things, which is, I guess, relatively unusual because Peg recently commented on my last video to check in because I didn't have my Friday Reads up, and I'm very touched. Thank you, Peg. And, you know, it's so nice to hear that people notice my videos or when they're not around, because I think, like a lot of booktubers, and especially small fry ones, you know, we have to mostly be doing this for ourselves, you know, if we don't have the, you know, energy to put ourselves out there, you know, nobody else owes us any views or anything, but I am very grateful that people watch my videos and find things interesting in them. So we're in the 5th month of quarantine, or at least I'm in the 5th month of quarantine since I was furloughed back in March. And one thing that kind of set off warning bells for me recently is, as a way to get out of my funk and distract myself from things, I finally sat down and watched Manchester by the Sea. And if any movie is just pure misery porn, it's that one. I watched the trailer right afterwards and I was like, you know, this music is just way too quirky. It's promising on things it can't deliver. So that's been on my mind of late. I liked the movie. I thought it was pretty strong, so naturally one of the first things I did afterwards was look for criticism to see what people didn't like about it. Which isn't much because, as people might know, it was, you know, a huge contender for the Oscars and won a lot of awards a few years ago. But one of the main criticisms I saw levied against it that I thought held some merit is that it's a movie where the main character doesn't really change. To be nitpicky, I don't think that's entirely accurate, actually. I do think he changes. It's just a very, very slight change. It is not your stereotypical Hollywood turn your life around sort of change, which, especially for someone in such straits as Casey Affleck's character, you'd kind of want to see. But in the macro sense of things, he entered the film unable to get over this big loss from his past, and he exited the film unable to get over this big loss from the past. And I imagine there's some literary, I'm going to assume it's in the literary bent, sort of fiction, where the changes in main characters might be slight like that, and that a lot of more commercial readers might not like that. I feel like a major snob. I wrote a novella, actually, that's out on submission right now that kind of reminds me a little of Manchester on the Sea, except that in comparison, my characters go through a huge amount of change. And a lot of that had to do with the critiquing process and people telling me that, you know, your characters are too inside their own heads and they don't change enough. And now I'm feeling indignant, like, damn it, Casey Affleck won the Oscar for staying inside his head. Why can't I write characters like that? One of the things I think is kind of similar between my novella and Manchester by the Sea is that it starts with this big family tragedy, but the real tragedy is something from the past, and that's the thing that's really eating up the main characters. And I think when you think of the makeup of the stories, trying to stay away from some spoilers, but it kind of makes sense because the immediate present-day deaths were both expected in my novella and in Manchester by the Sea. They, at least to some degree, were pretty much predicated, whereas the traumatic event from the past was much more of a sudden, unwelcome surprise. I don't know, maybe I'm just thinking to myself, if I have to write more cover letters where I do comps, I wonder if I can get away with comparing my novella to Manchester by the Sea. Maybe with the promise that it's slightly less misery porny, slightly. And anyway, I'll link down below to a video review that I really liked of the movie because it talked about how it portrayed grief in a realistic way, which I really liked and agreed with, so that'll be down below. And with that, I think I'll step away from my movie portion of my reading update. Well, the first book I finished, oh, not even this week, I guess, anymore, but relatively recently, is Holding My Breath by Sidura Ludwig, which I chose a couple weeks ago for my page 112 tag pick. And I think it stood up. This is a family drama novel, takes place in Manitoba and Winnipeg, although to criticize anything, I don't necessarily feel like those locations are that fleshed out. Although I kind of feel like it doesn't really matter because I was in it for the characters more than the geography. And the characters in this are members of a family, and it's a very female-centric family. Our protagonist is a young woman named Beth. This is really her Bildungsroman story, where we go from her very early days, or technically she starts the narrative before she's born, and it ends when she is in college and is about to move away from home, although I guess that's a little spoilery. And the family is kind of defined by staying close to its roots, I would guess. I mean, maybe that's a little simplistic. I think it's more what Beth's mother, Goldie, wants. She's a first-generation Canadian. Her parents came from Russia during pogrom times. They're a Jewish family, and there's a fair amount of Jewish culture in here, including the fact that Goldie is involved with sisterhood activities, which I don't think I've seen in novels before, so I've really liked it. Although for Beth, what she sees through these sisterhood activities is a bunch of women who insist on this conventionality that she doesn't want for herself. Beth is a woman, a girl, who falls in love with astronomy based in part off of her uncle's journals. Her uncle, Phil, was killed before she was born in World War II, and Beth reads the journals when she's a little girl and grows this love of astronomy, which comes up through poetic and scientific little asides throughout the story. And I found that to be so moving, I guess. It made Phil, who, was dead throughout the novel, feel alive. And I don't know if I'm biased, because, I'm an aunt now, so whenever, aunts or uncles and nieces and nephews kind of feel something for each other, I like it. But it's also about keeping someone's memory alive, and it's about understanding the broader world in a way, that there's a world beyond sort of the strictures of what Goldie wants for her family. Beth also has a couple of aunts who are her mother's sisters, both of whom have tragedies or controversies in their pasts and presents and futures. And she has a couple of friends that kind of feel a little bit archetypal. But it's really about Beth trying to find her place in the world while trying to identify with these members of her family, particularly the women of her family. And so I guess I'd technically say I don't think it's a standout amazing book, but it moved me while I was reading it. I thought there were some really beautiful turns of phrase. I wrote something down even in Facebook about when Beth was trying to explain her love of astronomy to her mother and was thinking about her uncle, and meanwhile Ludwig was weaving in something that was happening in Goldie's life, and I just thought it was really kind of well done, or maybe I was just moved or something. And yeah, I guess, and I may be biased by page 112, but the mother-daughter bond felt central to me in this story. I mean, there's a lot of relationships, but that one felt really central, and I thought she did a good job of it without making either of the characters too one-dimensional, so huzzah! Next, well, I just started this one. It's Love by Toni Morrison. Hoping to finish it by the end of the month, but This is Morrison's 8th published novel, which I am reading in part for Toni Morrison 2020, which was started by Hannah at Hannah's Books, where we have a Voxer group, and we've been discussing her books as we read them. And I've been trying to read, and succeeding mostly, with one book a month. I'm in very early stages of this one, but in a way I kind of see some Tar Baby parallels, which I probably shouldn't claim because I'm really so early into this one, but it seems it's going to have a really intimate setting like Tar Baby did, sort of off the beaten path of city life, perhaps. So far, frankly, I've read the prologue with a ambiguous Toni Morrison style narrator who maybe will understand who or what she is by the end of the book, or maybe not, don't know. But she's sort of narrating changes in history, particularly in how women and black women view themselves throughout the 20th century, because it seems like so far in the prologue at least she's talking from the 90s when this book was written. And then she also talks about this cannery town and this sort of big man and the women in his life who loom large as a, a mythological sort of perhaps melodramatic family or set of people, and I imagine the rest of the book will have to do with their story. That's how it's set up. So that's where I am. Admittedly, I went ahead and just downloaded the audiobook from my library because I guess I'm thinking I'm in a funk, and Toni Morrison is a very complicated writer, so sometimes it can help to, I guess, both listen and read, and also she narrates the audiobook, and it feels really poignant to hear her voice reading her own words, especially since, Morrison is gone now. So it's nice to have, her voice still in the world, even though obviously the major way she's still in the world is through her words. Yeah, that's where I am, and I'll probably report back and give my thoughts in my next Am Reading update. And finally, next on my docket, I have Lanny by Max Porter, also from my library, except this one is an ebook. Lanny might be what I need, I guess, in my funky days of being too inside my own head, because it's a magical realism sort of novel, I believe. But that's all I will say about it now, because I am reading this book for the BookTube Prize. The BookTube Prize, as many of you might know, was started by Robert at Barter Hordes, where we have spent all year narrowing down lists of the best in fiction and nonfiction of last year. We are in the finals round. I am judging fiction, 6 titles that I have to read and rank before the end of September. And then the winners for fiction and nonfiction will be announced in October. And I'm so excited. This is definitely a highlight of a really iffy year, iffy to be nice about it. And anyway, I will leave more information about the BookTube Prize down below. So that about covers it for me now on this gloomy day that I don't think you can see behind me, but it's there. I guess this wasn't as hard as I thought to come back and jolt myself back into a good part of my routine and out of my funk. I enjoyed rambling on as usual, perhaps a reminder that I am engaging with the world, at least in terms of some literature and film. I'm even engaging a little bit with the broader political world, although to be honest, I'm mostly watching politics through the lens of comedy shows like Stephen Colbert. I actually, though, just watched John Oliver's takedown of, I guess that's all you can really say it is, of the Republican National Convention, and he tied it to the events that happened in Kenosha with the violence there. The violence against Jacob Blake, and then what was perpetrated by the white terrorist who came in with the gun. And certainly seemed to be following a lot of the playbook of some things that were talked about in the RNC. Oliver pulls no punches. He's technically a comedian, but he is righteous and, has important things to say. So I guess I'll also link that down below. So that's the world we're living in, or a lot of the world that I'm living in right now anyway. Not sure what to expect in September, things staying different, staying the same. But I hope to be back soon with a book haul at least to talk about more books that are out there, and hope you are all enjoying what you are reading as well. Thank you so much for watching, everyone, and I'll see you next time.